right, what's up, and welcome into A Bettor Morning for Monday, October 11th, in the good year of 2023. It's your boy Corey Parson, the fantasy executive. If you're out there, say good morning back. Coming up on the program today, I'm going to look at some updated NFL win totals courtesy of BetMGM. Give you a couple thoughts on how some win total numbers are moving and shaking. Also, I want to get into the I want to look at some of the top performers so far to start the NFL season. About a month in, month and a half, 5 weeks or so in. And I want to get into some look at where we at right now, who's the top, who's doing what, can they keep it up, can they keep it going? And then also cannot forget, A Bettor Morning is brought to you by Rival Fantasy, your all-in-one fantasy sports platform. But I want to start off this morning talking about last night in the Major League Baseball action last night. You had the Houston Astros, nice bounce back performance from the Houston Astros. They go out to Minnesota. They get a 9-1 win over the Twins. Houston now has a 2-1 series lead in that best-of-5 series. Last night, Christian Javier, 5 innings pitched, 1 hit, no earned runs. Sonny Gray takes the loss for the Minnesota Twins. Like I said, now the Houston Astros now 1 win away from advancing to seemingly, it seems like their 200th American League Championship Series. Now, the next thing that I want to update in the Major League Baseball playoffs is last night we had the Texas Rangers 7, the Baltimore Orioles 1. Nate Eovaldi gets the win for the Texas Rangers. Dean Creamer takes the L for Baltimore. He was blown up early in this game. Rangers win the game, win the series. 3-0 sweep of the Baltimore Orioles. Tonight, Major League Baseball action. You got the Atlanta Braves and Philadelphia Phillies in Philadelphia for Game 3. You get the Astros and the Twins back at it for Game 4. Houston trying to wrap it up on the road. And the Arizona Diamondbacks can actually close out the LA Dodgers at home tonight. The 100 win LA Dodgers on the bubble tonight as they get ready to head into this contest. But I would be remiss if I do not circle back and discuss the Baltimore Orioles. The 101 win Baltimore Orioles. The Baltimore Orioles, who were supposed to be the fixture of this new American League East. 101 wins. Yay, Orioles. Win the division for the first time in forever. Go to the playoffs for the first time since I was a teenager. And ended up playing 3 more games than the Mets. The poverty-stricken Baltimore Orioles had the audacity to buck their chest at the big bad New York Yankees this year. The poverty-stricken Orioles, who ended up playing an extra 3 games in the postseason after winning 101 in the regular season. As the great Tony Kornheiser would say, happy trails to the Baltimore Orioles. Next time, send the evil empire to get the job done. It'll probably get finished by the time you get to the American League Championship Series, but it won't be 3 games and out in the first round. Happy trails to the Baltimore Orioles. I'll be glad to go back to Camden Yards next year. Now, let's get into some NFL action. Well, not really some NFL action. I do want to talk about some of these players and how they stand so far to start the season. And I want to start off at the quarterback position where right now, Josh Allen, despite all the criticism, is currently the top statistical quarterback in fantasy football with 123 fantasy points and 4 touchdowns and 4 points per touchdown pass scoring. Josh Allen is getting it done. You already know Josh Allen's whole thing is not a fantasy thing. Josh Allen's thing is more of a what's it going to be when his team get to the postseason? Can he not make those critical back-breaking turnovers? But Josh Allen right now, the top point scorer at a quarterback in fantasy football. Now you got Jalen Hurts coming in at number 2. And I just said the other day that Jalen Hurts, right now, to me, has overtaken Lamar Jackson as the second best quarterback in the NFL. Jalen Hurts masters hero ball. He's a player that can win the game by himself. Yes, he has weapons like A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, but if needed, Jalen Hurts can go out there and get a W on his own. There's very few quarterbacks in this league that can do that. Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, those are the guys. Jalen Hurts right now at the top of that list, outside of Patrick Mahomes, in my opinion, and he's second in fantasy quarterback scoring so far this year. Third in fantasy quarterback scoring is Justin Fields. Now, this is probably why y'all are always so optimistic about Justin Fields, because he puts up good fantasy numbers. But you got to understand that the Chicago Bears, those fantasy points don't help the Chicago Bears record. See, he went on a 15-game losing streak as the Chicago Bears starting quarterback. Yes, his fantasy statistics look nice. I got him on a couple teams. Hold your nose type stuff. But Justin Fields, regardless of the situation, third highest scoring quarterback in fantasy football so far this season. Number 4 is Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins has 204 passing attempts this season. That's tops in the NFL by far. This is what I'll say. You can always play Kirk Cousins passing attempts. You know what? Matthew Stafford has a lot of passing attempts as well. But you can always play Cousins passing attempts around 38, 39, 40. I would always take the higher on that in a fantasy stats-based game. Now let's get to the next guy on the list. QB5 so far this season is Tua Tagovailoa. Tua with 103 fantasy points right behind Kirk Cousins, QB5. You already know what it is. It's the Miami Dolphins offense. It's the innovation. It's the motion. It's Tyreek Hill. It's Jalen Waddle. And it's Tua delivering passes to them and them getting yards after the catch, and Tua racking up good fantasy points as well. If you are in some kind of redraft, make sure that, you don't look at Tua the same way you did before the season started. Now, the concussions remain a thing, you know what I'm saying? But Tua is getting the job done right now. Tua coming in as QB5, MVP. He is an MVP candidate. I don't know if I'd go that far, though. Right now, quarterback 6, fantasy football, with 102 points is Patrick Mahomes. I don't want to say he got off to a slow start this season, because he really didn't. But, the weapon, Travis Kelce, wasn't there. Matter of fact, Travis Kelce hasn't been that great all season so far this year. You can always play the lower on his receiving yards. And I'm telling you, it's probably the lower is probably cashed every week this season. But Mahomes is getting it done. What we're seeing from Mahomes more this year is Mahomes already has 154 yards rushing this season. So that's another thing that you can always do, is look at Patrick Mahomes' rushing statistics. And he's running a lot this year. Really, that number has, every week, that number for his rushing total has increased. It opened up around 12, 13 and a half. It's all the way up to 24 and a half right now. And with the lack of really dynamic weapons on the team, you see Mahomes go hero ball from time to time. And that's why Mahomes is putting up good fantasy stats. Number 7 is Brock Purdy. And this is interesting. Brock Purdy only has 98 completions on the season. He is extremely efficient, already with 99 fantasy points. He's hitting about 72% of his passes, throwing for over 1,200 yards so far this season, 9 touchdowns, no interceptions. You don't really look at Brock Purdy as a fantasy asset, but really his efficiency is exactly what you want in a fantasy quarterback. He doesn't take a lot to do much. You never really see people roll Brock Purdy out as their fantasy starter, but right now he's QB7 in fantasy. He's getting the job done. QB8 is Russell Wilson. Well, what is Russell Wilson doing well? Throwing the football a lot. 163 attempts so far in the season. Now, he's only completing about 66% of his passes. But still, 11 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. He's been sacked 15 times this year, though. But he also has 119 rushing yards. So he's giving you some of what you want. You like the high touchdown pass number, and the fact that he can get you rushing yards as well. He's always going to be in a play from behind mode. So the numbers are there. It doesn't look pretty doing it, but the numbers are there for Russell Wilson so far this season. QB9 is Lamar Jackson. You didn't draft Lamar Jackson to be QB9. You drafted Lamar Jackson to be QB 2, 3, 4 in that range. QB9 is not terrible, but what we see from Jackson is the completions are not really there so far to start the season. He's completing at about 70%. A lot of dink and dunk, though. Only just over 1,000-yard passes. Lamar has 4 passing touchdowns. He also has 4 rushing touchdowns, 265 rushing yards. But you want to see Lamar's passing numbers go a little bit crazy. He continues to be a top asset for fantasy. But that offense continues to be, you know what I'm saying? Don't get me wrong, Lamar can go hero ball if he needs to. But you got to really see a tighter ship run from the Baltimore Ravens offense. Good thing about it is I think they can get there. Quarterback 10 right now on the season is Justin Herbert, the Chargers quarterback. Herbert is doing his job. 71% completion percentage is about where he wants to come in at. Doesn't really give you no juice running the football, but he does have 7 touchdown passes on the season. 145 attempts. Now, you got to also take into consideration that Justin Herbert has also had a bye week so far this season. So Herbert really having a good year this year, but you knew what you were going to get from Justin Herbert. You would like to see them throw the football a little bit more under Kellen Moore. QB 11 is Jared Goff. Solid. You know what I'm saying? With Jared Goff, doesn't give you anything in the rushing game, but Jared Goff completing about 70% of his passes, 9 touchdown passes so far in the season. Goff even has 2 rushing touchdowns this year. So Jared Goff getting it done. QB 12 is Jordan Love. QB 13 is CJ Stroud. So that's where they stand right now as the top 12, 13 quarterbacks in fantasy football. Jordan Love has a couple of rushing touchdowns, 8 passing touchdowns. We've seen CJ Stroud. He's been electric. But the completion percentage for Stroud is low. He's coming in at about 60%. Now he's thrown for over 1,400 yards. He has 7 touchdowns. He doesn't give you anything in the rushing game, CJ Stroud. But so far, the young man's having a good season. Like I said, has not turned the football over once. Now, when you go and you investigate what it's been like for running backs so far this season, the top of the heap, I shouldn't have to tell you, this is PPR's format scoring as well, is Christian McCaffrey. The usage is just out of this world with Christian McCaffrey. This guy already has 8 20-plus yards rushes. He's already got 20 receptions, 168 receiving yards. He scored 8 touchdowns so far this season. It's just the usage that Christian McCaffrey, how much he touches the football. He is 1-1 in fantasy drafts, especially in that San Francisco 49er offense. RB2 and 3. Raheem Mostert is RB2 with 314 rushing yards, 7 touchdowns, averaging over 5 yards a pop. Then you got Devon Achane, who is RB3 right now in PPR, scoring 460 rushing yards on 38 attempts. That's insane. Son is averaging 12 yards a carry. You rarely see that in any professional running back. So Achane right now, even though he's banged up, is going to miss some time. He is running back 3. Running back 4 right now, I did not expect to see this, is Travis Etienne. Etienne has 95 attempts so far this season, going over 4 yards a pop. He actually has 3 touchdowns this year. That was a knock against him last year. So Travis Etienne is getting it done. Corinne Williams, running back 5. Zach Moss, running back 6. Right now, running back 7 is Bijan Robinson. He's averaging over 5 yards a carry, but the attempts are low. Only 67 attempts so far this season. He also, Robinson, does not have a touchdown rushing yet. He has a pair of receiving touchdowns. Now he's caught 24. He's caught 21 of his 24 targets for 146 yards. So Robinson getting it done, but you want to see Robinson start to get more carries to really cash in on that fantasy value. But the Atlanta Falcons, Tyler Algier is going to be involved. You do got a solid player who's efficient in Robinson. I just wish the rushing numbers was up there in the 70 to 80 attempts already range, but that hasn't been the case for Bijan. Now, David Montgomery has 88 attempts so far this season, and he also has 6 touchdowns. Doesn't really give you anything out the backfield, but David Montgomery has been an electric find. Right now, he is RB8. RB9 is DeAndre Swift. It's just amazing how on draft day, no, you don't sit Brees. Play Brees every week. It's just amazing on draft. He's going crazy right now. It's just amazing on draft day how I kind of was like, I didn't want nothing to do with DeAndre Swift. And now he looks like the reincarnation of Jim Brown. DeAndre Swift is getting it done. Josh Jacobs currently running back 10 on the season. He's only averaging 2.9 yards an attempt, but he's a volume play, put it like that. Tony Pollard so far this season, 340 rushing yards, a couple touchdowns, RB11 right now. You wanted him to do better than that. Really, he hasn't really gotten it going too much in the receiving game yet. He has caught 19 of his 22 targets, but he has no receiving touchdowns, only 4 rushing touchdowns. And then you got Kenneth Walker coming in right now at RB12 from the Seattle Seahawks. Walker's getting it done so far this season. Not a lot of attempts, but Walker's already had a bye. So he's already in this mix despite having a bye already. And then running back 13, Isaiah Pacheco. Running back 14, Bijan Robinson. Now, Breece Hall is down here at RB20, but you're going to start to see Breece Hall excel and take off. I don't really think no matchup. Like, he's matchup proof to me. You got to play him. He gets it done too much every week. When we move on to the wide receiver position so far this season, our top wide receiver on the year, of course, is Tyreek Hill, followed by Steph Diggs. Puka Nacua comes in at wide receiver 3 so far this season, followed by DJ Moore. Jamar Chase finally started to get it going, had that big game last week. Justin Jefferson currently wide receiver 6, but he's coming up on that missed time with his hamstring. Keenan Allen, wide receiver 7. He's already had a bye week, so he should be a solid asset for the rest of the year. A.J. Brown might be the best wide receiver in the league. He is wide receiver 8 right now. Then you got Devontae Adams at 9. Adam Thielen at 10. Thielen has 46 targets on the season. Thielen is a guy who's going to get a lot of targets. He's not going to put up any big stats. He's going to have a lot of targets and a lot of catches. Rookie quarterbacks like veteran wide receivers like Adam Thielen, if you can target him in a trade, if you need some wide receiver help, he'd be a good one to look at. Nico Collins, wide receiver 11. Marquise Brown, wide receiver 12. Brown already 42 targets on the young season. And how about George Pickens, Pittsburgh Steelers, as wide receiver number 13. That's a quick update. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver. And now your tight ends, Sam Laporta is tight end 1 early in the season, followed by Travis Kelce, TJ Hockenson. And then you have Mark Andrews at 5. George Kittle is only 6 because he had a big game this past week, but Kittle hasn't really done anything. Cole Kmet also hasn't really done anything, but he's had some games where he scored some touchdowns. Really, tight end has been a disaster this year. But guys like Logan Thomas, who's 11, Hunter Henry at 10, Darren Waller at 9, Goddard at 8, Ingram at 7 have been consistent to go along with Andrews, Hockenson, Kelce, who's banged up, but Sam Laporta right now, who is the man. Now, there you go right there. Now, with that being said, I want you all to get involved with the Fantasy Alarm All-Pro subscription, right? Head on over to fantasyalarm.com, get the Fantasy Alarm All-Pro subscription. Unlock all the content for all sports, including annual draft guides, daily, weekly rankings, value vault, position coaches, and more. Go to fantasyalarm.com/win. Once again, that's the Fantasy Alarm All-Pro subscription. They can help you make your lineup decisions every week and get you ready to go. Before we get up out of here, a couple of win totals that have increased from last week to this week. This stats courtesy of BetMGM. San Francisco 49ers up from 12.5 wins to 13.5 wins. We might as well go ahead and start the parade route in Southern California or wherever they play at and out there in the Bay Area, because we might as well end the season because the 49ers are winning the Super Bowl. At least that's what I've been told so far this year. So go ahead, and we're playing for nothing right now, but go ahead and get the parade route rolled in. Kansas City Chiefs up from 11.5 to 12.5. That should have been an overplay anyway. The Lions, how about this? The Lions win total all the way up to 11.5. The Lions have an elite win total. Are they an elite team? I actually would hit the over, though, on this Lions number. Their schedule is weak. The Lions are going to be able to rack up a lot of wins. We won't really know what the Lions are until we get to January. And I think at January, we could see the the Detroit Lions do what the Baltimore Orioles just did. The Jaguars have gone up from 8.5 to 9.5. The Raiders actually going up from 6.5 to 7.5. I would not get nowhere near that. The Bills have decreased from 11.5 to 10.5. The Baltimore Ravens have also decreased from 10.5 to 9.5. The Titans have gone from 10.5 to 7.5. The Commanders from 7.5 to 6.5. I told you, though, I like the Commanders this week. I think the Commanders are going to be a better road team than a home team this year. This weekend in Atlanta, I like the Commanders. The Patriots have gone from 7.5 to 5.5. Boy, how the mighty have fallen. New England Patriot current win total sitting at 5.5. And the Denver Broncos go from 6.5 to 4.5. I told y'all about a month ago when Antonio Brown was on with Cam and Mace after week 1, he said that the Denver Broncos were going to tank so they can get Russell Wilson up out of there. Their current win total is sitting at 4.5. Never doubt the great Antonio Brown, who Antonio Brown tweeted that the Baltimore Ravens need him. He doesn't need the Baltimore Ravens. Well, the Baltimore Ravens need you. The Baltimore Ravens don't need you because you've quit on every team you've ever played on. And nobody loves Antonio Brown more than I do. But leave the Baltimore Ravens alone. That's not going to work. They got too much mistake-prone football right now to bring in a dude who's going to play 3 or 4 games and do something stupid and leave. What up, Hal? Didn't the Eagles lose in Detroit to open the season last year? Philly better hope they don't have to face Detroit in Detroit. Philadelphia is going to win. Detroit could really end up being the 1 seed. That's how weak their schedule is. But Detroit, listen, here's the deal. We're going to see what Detroit is when they have to face some adversity on the road. To me, I think that the spot that I'm like, first of all, they've already lost to the Seahawks. So let's get that out the way, right? One is going good, Hal. Seahawks has already beat them. I'm going to put up the Detroit Lions schedule right here. We got a little bit of time today because I have people telling me the Lions are better than the Cowboys. That's stupid. So they're at Tampa this weekend. They can get a win. Right now, the Detroit Lions have 4 wins. Tampa's 5. At Baltimore, they could actually win that game, right? But they play back-to-back road games coming up at Tampa, at Baltimore. I can see them winning those 2 games, to be honest with you. Home for the Raiders, they can win. They can go out to the Chargers and win. The Chargers don't have no fan base. They'll beat the Bears. They'll beat the Packers at the Saints. That's interesting right here. What are they going to do at New Orleans, right? Then they got at Chicago. Then they got the Broncos, Vikings. Late in the year, New Year's Eve, December 30th, they are at the Dallas Cowboys night game. Both teams probably have playoff positions wrapped up by then. Then they close versus the Vikings. They really don't. I want to see what they look like in the Dome in January. How does they have the coaching advantage over Dallas with your man Dan Campbell, the kneecap biter? Well, listen, the players are buying in. But Dallas played Detroit last year and beat them by 30. So let's not get carried away with the Detroit Lions. The Baltimore Orioles just won 101 games. They ended up playing 3 more games than the Mets. Let that sink in. But listen, they're legit. They're a good football team. Can they win the NFC? I think we need to slow down with that one right there. Mike McCarthy's coming off back-to-back 12-5 seasons, Hal. So there goes that. All right, it's time for the Fantasy Executive to get up out of here. For the lovely and talented Heather Klein, it's your boy Corey, the Fantasy Executive, wishing you a better morning.